Okay, welcome everyone to Free School for Farm Workers.
Muy bien, gracias a todas las personas.
So today's session is on farmer burnout, and we're really excited to be hosting this teach-in on such an important topic that I know that we're all navigating season after season. So very quickly, before we get started, I just want to introduce myself and my co-organizer of Free School. So my name is Anita, and I work with the Not Our Farm Project. And our work is national, but I'm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're a nonprofit farm worker storytelling and advocacy project.
Hey everybody, I'm Sarah Jane Zugratz. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in Wisconsin. I work with UW Extension and with Fair Share CSA Coalition, and a lot of the work that I do is around supporting positive labor experiences on farms. And I'm really excited to be here tonight for this important conversation.
Thanks, Sarah. So I want to share a little bit about Free School for Farm Workers. And so Free School, for folks who haven't attended our sessions before, we're a series that we began this year. And it's inspired by the power of community education and specifically anarchist free schools that are found all over the world. Free school is a direct reaction to knowledge hoarding that we so often see happening on farms as workers. And we also know that among us, there is so much knowledge, wisdom, and skill. And we wanted to create a space where we can really share information with each other as farm workers and learn and create connections. So we try very hard to protect this space. And our free school sessions are reserved for farm workers only and for those who work directly with farm owners, with farm workers. So because of the power dynamics that we know exist on farms, this is not a space for traditional farm owners and operators, and we know that resources do exist for that group. So all of our free school topics also, they come from needs and requests that have been posed by farm workers. So if there's a topic that you would love a free school session to, focus on, or if you'd like to host a free school session and Skillshare and teach about something, please let us know. And Sarah's dropping a link into the chat that is actually a form that you can fill out to submit future free school topics. We'd love to hear from you. So for today, we have an incredible group of farmers and farm workers who are going to be talking to us about their experiences with burnout and also ways that we can work through it. So I'm going to pass it over to Laura Fredrickson Gozawish, who is going to be our farmer burnout guide for this evening. And I'll let her also introduce herself and the other speakers who are here with us today.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. Really happy to be here, and quiero también decir que es un placer estar con ustedes.
I also want to say that it's a pleasure to be with you tonight, this evening with you, and to talk about this topic that's very important. There is information at the bottom of the screen right now, and if you want to talk with me and you need support or if you have questions, I can also respond and engage with you in Spanish with whatever language you are speaking, which whatever language is most comfortable with you.
Coming tonight. This is very important topic, and it's on a lot of our minds. And I read a lot of the comments that you made as you registered, and it was very moving to me how important this is to you and how focused you are on supporting your teams and caring about yourselves and caring about others simultaneously. And that is a really important element of managing burnout and keeping ourselves safe from the stress that we endure day to day in this work. And I have a unique combination of knowledge and expertise as a massage therapist before I became a farmer. The power of rest and the importance of how our body works with how we work with it has been part of how I learned to farm and an important part of how I farm now. So I started out as a clinical massage therapist, and during a period of my life where I was struggling a lot with my resources, my finances, I couldn't really afford food. I fell in love with growing food, and the little bits that I could grow helped me feel empowered about my position in the world and the ways that I could affect change for my life. And it really helped me believe that there was more that I could do besides just barely get by. And over the years, as I fell more in love with growing food, I just had to start farming. And I started without a lot of knowledge. And that had its own set of stressors and expectations. And it was not easy, but I really couldn't stop doing it. And I think you probably know how that feels, that even when you wish you could quit, you sometimes don't want to. And I definitely know how that feels. I've worked for a lot of different styles of farmers. A lot of people mentioned the people they work for or work with in their comments, and you know, different levels of self-awareness and feelings of solidarity with you and the owners can be different wherever you're
Remember
farming.
when I met that girl Anita in New Mexico?
And
This is like part of the work that she does, is putting stuff on like this, and I feel like I usually at
sell
least like
vegetables that I grow on rented land at
yeah, that
Walmart.
crush.
I can wait.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I grow primarily market veg. That's my passion. Herbs, flowers. I see I missed the S in St. Paul, Minnesota. One of my friends in the recovery space likes to say she's practicing imperfection as a service, which I think is very nice. I'm doing that for everyone tonight. So as I was working in farming, and I tried to put my massage history behind me, I just wanted to be a farmer. And the messaging that I got was that there is no crossover between the wellness and the agricultural spaces. And the more time I spent with other farmers, the more I realized that there should be a crossover between the wellness and farming spaces, and our bodies and the earth are connected through food. And it's a really important connection to honor. And that those of us that do this work that is very sacred are usually the last to receive the benefits of our hard work. We don't get paid fairly. We don't get to eat as good a food as we grow sometimes. Many of my colleagues say, hey, I grow beautiful broccolini and I've never tasted it. And it breaks my heart that we could be doing such important work and not be honored for the healers that we are. So I'm really honored to be here with you today and support you. Some of the tips that I have, I hope will serve you immediately and also long term. And if you want to connect with me, my website is at the bottom of the screen. Even if you need help with something, if you've got a specific question, feel free to reach out. There's a message me button that you can send me a message. And I love talking about bodies, so I'm always happy to chat with you about whatever's going on. So as we move forward, we are going to talk about the definition of burnout, because as Anita referenced, the knowledge hoarding and some of the ways that white supremacy culture can infiltrate the way we educate ourselves, we think about themes that are maybe intellectual in nature and not really real world. The way that this crosses over, there can be kind of that worship of the written word, that if the Webster's definition says this, that's what burnout is. And burnout is a really difficult topic to nail down. And I think it would serve us all to discuss together what we think burnout is. As we've registered for this course, we read the word burnout and said, yeah, I definitely want to go to that. So what sorts of things do we think of as burnout? And I've identified three major areas as a hint and kind of a jumping off point, that it is three-dimensional, maybe multi-dimensional, but the three primary dimensions that medical professionals use to define it include the mental, the physical, and emotional. So if one of these questions sticks out to you that you have an answer for, I'd love for all of us to discuss, like, what is this thing we're running from? What does this burnout monster look like? And feel free to come off mute and share what you might think about that. I can start if you wish. I know that one of the things that I identify with for burnout is a physical feeling of emptiness that is beyond exhaustion and a little bit bigger than I feel like I can manage. That the physical feeling is a big one for me, and I know it when I feel it. I can sometimes see it in my colleagues in their eyes when they kind of glaze over and they're just staring off into the distance. There's been a couple moments like that this season. Does anyone else?
I'll chime in. I guess the sort of feeling that I get at least once a year is just sort of existential, like feeling like why am I putting myself through this? And I know that that always comes at a certain time in the season where everything just seems to, you've got all your systems in place, but it's like all just feels like it's coming down on you.
Yes, that is, I recognize that too as that emotional existential crisis feeling. I see Carolyn saying she can't come on the mic but wanted to contribute. Soreness every single day and depression over the constant discomfort. And the depression and pain rob the joy of what brought me to farming in the first place. That is very well said and very thorough of that feeling that we will be discussing. The physical element is very deep.
I also have felt an experience of like chasing your tail, kind of where you feel like there's never going to be time to regain the energy that you need to even get through the day. You're just constantly on empty.
Yes, to me, that is very astute. And I love that image of chasing your tail because it feels very frenetic. You're still trying to get all the things done and you just don't really know what you're doing sometimes. The eternal brain fog I see Hannah wrote about feels very real. Lindsay, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, the strongest indicator of burnout to me, similar to things I just heard, was suddenly not feeling able to look forward to the workday or whatever it be that I feel burnout about. But just a sudden, why don't I feel excited about this anymore? What's that about?
Yeah, and I think your mention of suddenness is very right. You know, you feel like, oh, it's hard. I'm doing it. And then all of a sudden you're just like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
Can be jarring. It can be jarring to feel like you don't recognize that. And dreading going to work. Marit said here too that when you usually enjoy it, and a lot of us enjoy this work, and that can be kind of heartbreaking to feel like we don't love it anymore, and scary to think about, what if I hate this thing I used to love? I know for me, it gets into my trust for myself. That's like, did I make a mistake? Am I crazy? You know, did I choose the wrong thing thinking that I wanted it? And then that turns into, how will I know if I need to change? Because if I think I want something else and then I end up hating it, it just feels very, spinning like chasing your tail, like Timmy said. Any other input? I love this conversation. we could also go into the question of, why does it matter? I know a lot of people who are willing to accept a life where they continue doing things they hate over and over, and they seem complacent with that or happy to check out. And I think we all deserve better than that. I think it matters because our lived experience is every day. It's everything we do, and this job is hard. We have to check out sometimes. Our body is built for that. We'll talk about that later. But I think it matters that we like what we do, and especially when maybe we don't get the other representations of reward, like high pay, lots of glamour. I didn't get into farming for the glamour. And I see that Jenna says, my coworkers and I tend to feed off of each other for better or worse, and resentment begins to form out of exhaustion. That is very true. And it can be hard when you want to take a break and you maybe fear that others will resent you for taking a break. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But teams, man, I saw a lot of mention about teams in people's comments, and our teams are counting on us and we count on them. And it's like a real tight relationship that we get through the season, suffering together, that we don't want to resent our jobs. We don't want to resent each other. And part of what I would like to offer to you today is that resenting ourselves is part of that too. We don't deserve to resent ourselves, our bodies, or our need for rest. It can be frustrating to need to rest when you know you can't. And a lot of times we'll turn that blame or anger towards ourselves first, because all the other factors seem to have an explanation, and that I just can't cut it. It must be something wrong with me. And that, as people have mentioned, the depression and pain, that it kind of just builds on itself. Max says, my body hurts all the time and I don't have the capacity to do important emotional work at home. Yeah, our jobs are just a part of our lives, and the rest of our lives do suffer when our job takes too much from us. And I know I'm in this like September period. I live in Minnesota, where I'm realizing fall and winter are coming and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm sending messages to all the friends I haven't talked to in months, like, I'm coming up for air again. Like, thanks for your patience. Maybe we can hang out in November. And it's hard. It's hard not to have the kind of ability to go on with your life after your work has taken so much from you. And when you feel the burnout, it takes even more. It feels really deeply exhausting. And I super know that feeling. I'm going to share a little bit about my own story with that feeling of deep exhaustion and burnout. And Liz and Kelly are also going to share, which I think will be our next slide, kind of just to think about our personal experiences, and maybe you'll hear some of yourself in their stories. Maybe you'll, even if you're not them in the story. I know sometimes I hear people's stories, and I'm the well-meaning friend that maybe dismissed their pain, trying to push them forward to say, oh, you'll be okay. That you never know who you are in these stories, and it's interesting to hear and empathize with what's gone on for these people, and maybe recognize it for yourself. So I don't know who wants to go first. I'm not sure if that was decided, but I'm going to stop talking now for a while.
Kelly, if you want to get things started, go right ahead.
Sure thing. Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly. Hopefully my connection is doing all right. I live very rurally and my internet is very dependent on the rain, and it's raining right now. I'm loving the discussion already. I'm already getting lost in my head a little bit. I'm a worker owner of Long Hearing Farm, and we are based in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains in Washington State. We are a organic vegetable farm that's currently on about 3.5 to 4 acres that we manage as a workers collective. I first started the farm 6 years ago with my farm partner, Elizabeth. And now we have a team of, at the peak of the season, there's 7 of us that work myriad of full and part-time, and our core team is 4 folks. We do diversified vegetables with a bunch of different outlets to a weekly 20-week CSA. Those of you that do a CSA know the grind, that you just keep churning it every week. We deliver to the local co-op. We work with both of the schools in the 2 communities that we mostly serve in the Skagit and Snohomish counties. Both the food banks there, both the school districts. We work with a couple different tribal programs. And our mission really is to just grow food as if the lives of the children in our community matter. And that's what we try to root our values around. And so we choose not to take a lot of our food down into Seattle, into the bigger city where we might be able to get more for the work that we do and the beautiful produce that we're so proud of. But to try and stay values aligned, we really try to stay in our community, which comes with its own costs. And it's a choice that we really have to grapple with every year. And that has its impacts. And that means that our margins that are already tight continue to be so. And the math doesn't always math in the ways that we wish it would. So much of what you all have shared is really resonating with me, and my own cycle of burnout, I think that feeling this time of year, like what a perfect time to be talking about this, is always just, am I gonna have enough left in the tank to get through the winter? And there's been several seasons where I've come into the winter knowing that that was gonna be my main job, was just putting myself back together physically and emotionally, and maybe even like working less than I might need to support my basic needs, just because of how drained I've been. I think it's almost every season, maybe except for like the first 2, definitely a question that I've had to ask myself of like, is this something that I can continue doing? Even though I love farming, I love my team, I trust them so much, and we have a really amazing community that we're growing for, and a pretty dreamy land situation, all things considered. Even though we don't own, we have a deep level of communication and trust with the folks that we rent from. So from like an internal standpoint, there's nothing going wrong. Everything is actually going just as it was designed. We have systems that are working beautifully, that we've crafted over the last 6 years. And we have outlets that we work with that we have good relationships with. So as far as like all the goals that we've set out to do, we're accomplishing them, and feel like very values aligned in how we've been able to do that. But that doesn't change the pace and the stress that's required of, I think what the 2 main parts that like challenge me every season are, of course, the physical demand. I think usually that's my main burnout indicator for myself, is just like my body is done. It says, nope, we're going to be a slug for the rest of winter. We're going to be on that couch. That's where we're going to be. You can come find us. We're not going out. That's all we can accomplish at this point until maybe January. This is probably the first season where that isn't my main indicator, because we have done a lot of work to adapt and try and deal with the burnout. And some of those strategies that we've been trying have been to hire more folks so that we can all step up, step back when we need to. So we have a deeper bench of a team, which means that a body gets to body a little bit more. If I need to take a day off, or I need to work a half day, or I need to leave a couple hours early, that's one of the strategies that we've been trying this season, and it's really been working for a lot of us. So that means that this year, like, my body isn't as tired as it usually is, which I think is a huge win. This year, really what like I can feel as the weight of the burnout is like the emotional exhaustion. I think that one of my primary indicators when I'm emotionally exhausted is that I just can't reach for curiosity as easily. I can't reach for that like creativity to arrive at solving the problem with one another as easily. Really have to like pause and take a breath and remind myself to be present and to not go into a rage in my head of like, we have this system that already exists, and why is this even a thing that we have to all figure out together, which is completely irrational because that's just how farming goes every week. And that's something that I logically know, but at the end of the season, the logic isn't there as easily. And I think the other thing to acknowledge is just like the weight of the world and how much all of us have collectively been through the last year, the last 5 years. Adapting to climate change is a really hard task. Every year, our farm has gone through something that my mentor before us never had to experience. And that changes our entire plan every single year of how we're farming and what we have to navigate. And I think that really at the end of the day is what calls into question for me, like, what does it look like for us to keep finding the juice to show up and do the work? And how do I know how big of an experiment I have to try to arrive at like being able to feel like I'm doing something that's life-giving, even though I know that the work I do is so values aligned. I know that farming is one of the places where I can most directly live out my values on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes I really call into question, is it like a small adjustment that I need to make in the day-to-day? Or is it really like a larger experiment that I have to try in order to arrive at not falling apart at the end of every season? And that's a question that I'll be asking at the end of this season, again, for the 4th year in a row. And luckily, I am surrounded by folks who are really willing to do that work with me and really willing to be like, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to like half the size of the fields that we're in next year? Do we need to slim the team down? Do we need to all get part-time jobs and all work part-time schedules? Like, do we need to make sure that you are paid less so that you can continue to have health care? Like, what is the experiment that we need to try so that you can have more of what you feel like is enough to live this life the way that you want to? Like, this, we got one shot, right? Like, we only get what, 40 seasons maybe to keep experimenting as farmers. And so I'm really grateful that I have a team that is so committed to those experiments, and that we're constantly with each other asking, like, what is enough? And I think my main learning that I'll take away from this season is that for the last several years, I've really defined what is enough smaller than what is actually true for me. I've sacrificed a lot of my basic needs in order to make farming work. I've never lived anywhere where I could meet all of my basic needs in one place comfortably. And that that is, I've defined what is enough as smaller than what is actually true, and that I can't actually continue to do that and have a healthy body and a healthy mind. And so that, I think, will be part of these like experiments that we'll get to try as a team and talk about deeply through the winter, in the hope that I can keep farming in my life and that I don't have to do a big experiment and jump somewhere else. Because that's how I ended up in farming in the first place. I got burnt out teaching and I had to leave because it just had drained me completely. So hopefully there's a smaller experiment in there. But I really hope to learn from all of you, and hopefully that'll give me the juice I need to emotionally make it through the winter that is coming. Thank you all for your time.
Kelly.
Kelly, that was beautiful and so powerful. We would love to hear from Liz next.
Hi, folks. I'm Liz. I'm very excited for this space where we give attention to caring for ourselves and others. Yeah, so let me just jump into it. So I worked on a nonprofit farm in Boston for 3 seasons. And after that, I had gone to do some studying in Taiwan, like language studying in Taiwan for 10 months. And I came back about 3 months ago. So I'm back in Boston. And just want to give some context before I talk about my experience. My family comes from China and not Taiwan, so I had an outsider experience in Taiwan for sure. I grew up in Central Florida, so I'm not native to Boston or city culture, but like I kind of combined the two as one. And my work background in like food pantry work, human services, social services really made me
Liz, I think you're frozen. If you want to try maybe turning your camera off.
I am back.
Yeah, you're back, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry. Where had it cut off?
You cut off about coming back when you were talking about coming back to Boston.
Oh my goodness, that early on? Okay.
You
Yeah, I
sound
had
clear,
gone
though.
to
Go ahead.
Taiwan. I am back in Boston now. That's what I ever cut off. Okay. Did I give the context? I'm sorry, I'm really shocked about how early it cut off.
You grew up in Florida, we're new to Boston, and then
Perfect. Okay. All right. So, yes, the nonprofit that I had worked for had farms in both suburban and rural areas that worked in conjunction. And so I was working on the urban farm. And roughly speaking, the mission is to develop youth food advocates and support the communities that we are in. And so that means we had youth program staff, we had office staff, farm staff, the youth teenagers, the teenager workers on the farm, as well as interns, volunteers, etc. So the work responsibilities and attention of the urban farmers were really often geared towards non-farmers, non-farm work, and balancing a bunch of different priorities. And there's also staff in the organization whose job and mindsets just really had nothing to do with land or growing. They were brought on for other skills. And where I worked was 1 acre over 2 plots of land, and the greenhouse was 11,000 square feet, with a third of it being a community garden. And so, this organization did not lean on this space to produce the bulk of food, and is meant to be like a touch point for the community. I had more of a front-facing role than a traditional grower. I worked with and under the direction of a farm manager, and that work often looked like, okay, how do we welcome interns and volunteers, 40 youth on this given day, corporate groups on the weekend, folks of all ages and abilities, and how do we provide meaningful work for them in this allotted amount of time before lunchtime, before they got to catch their bus? How do we keep up momentum and quality control? And so there are many hands on this farm doing the work. Though my body did wear down in some ways from manual labor, and I'm tending to that, the greater impact was definitely the overstimulation of everyone doing more than they can handle and wearing many hats, me personally taking on other people's emotions, which could also be called burnout, right? And the health issues that came with that, with my anxiety or not being able to really ground myself. Similar to many of you all, there's no rest or reflect time during the growing season. For us, especially in the summer, or for that organization, particularly in the summer, there are a lot of demands of the summer youth program. You're accountable to all these teenagers and their parents and the community and everything going on. And the culture of the organization very much reflects that of greater society, where we don't rest, right? But in my third season in 2022, it definitely felt different. One, our sister farm experienced so much crop failure, and seeing the farm staff there demoralized. And then there was a conflict with a person in the office that left someone I cared deeply for. I cared deeply for many of the coworkers. Left them feeling unsafe and never got addressed. And I had to watch that shit. I had to watch that, and I could not compartmentalize. So climate grief hit me hard. Isolation hit me hard, because the sister farms existed in bubbles, and I had only worked, of who I worked with, there was only one other full-time farmer. And hopelessness hit me hard, because I realized, wow, or what I was thinking was, wow, no one here tends to themselves, and how will they tend to me, right? No one is even acknowledging the grief about the land, if they can even see it, because most of the folks here just work in the offices and see the food and the happy people and how great it is. And I needed to process that with other people. And to be clear, right, I deeply love these folks, and we did care for each other to the extent that we could care for ourselves, right? But care shouldn't rely solely on individuals who are willing to disrupt the norm. Right? The organization, I believe, should have things in place, systems in place. And so the nature of nonprofits is definitely oriented to, what's to our benefit, outcomes, what is, appealing to grant funders, oriented to providing services for other folks. And I noticed that many nonprofits are built in this way, where, people want to do a lot, they want to do better, land back, DEI, equity, expansion, building community center, gardens, outreach to more people in need. And the grants and programs that, whether they do or do not have to do with food or land, they all rely on the land and its existence and its use, because that's what's in the grant application. That's what funders want to see, a very pretty farm. And that relies on a small crew to steward it. And when is farm worker health and well-being grant funded, right? And so that's just the cycle that it existed. And switching gears to my time in southern Taiwan, I'm not meaning to glorify this country or, non-Western countries at all, but for many moments when I was there, I felt well. I just felt well. I knew it wasn't forever. I came back because I noticed my mental and physical health was slowly degrading because I was not maintaining it. I was on my butt a lot. I was not doing farm work. I was not seeing a therapist. I didn't have my regular routine. But life there definitely did not feel as heavy as it does here. I noticed when I came back, and besides the fact of like transit, food access, healthcare making a lot more sense there than it does in the US. Life in Taiwan, I noticed, was generally slower. Um, People still call it a developing country, but folks still have their agricultural roots or their grandparents are in the rural areas. Small business culture is strong. Agriculture is huge in their tourism and exports. General public is not very into GMOs. And so it was kind of refreshing to see a different set of problems in Taiwan, but things seem to make more sense for farmers there, at least what I saw. And so coming back, I'm not thinking about dream farms anymore. I'm thinking of a dream society because it's so clear to me that there's so much working against farm workers culturally. And there's so much working against like collectivism, sharing and joy and healing. And so, yeah, my recent personal takeaways after Taiwan are I cannot return to farming in a society that does not rest or have slowness because I, as a person growing up, have never like slowness. I talk fast, I eat fast. It wasn't until like 3 years ago that someone was I noticed that like I'm even like really pushing to pee fast. Like gotta do it as soon as possible. And I think someone heard, I was like, you don't have to put that much pressure on your bladder. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I was. And for me to return to farming in a society that does not value rest or slowness, I have to first build my own strong personal practice of boundary setting, body work, resetting my nervous system to combat the culture that farming in this country exists in. And given that I don't have a long relationship with farming, I realized that I am better suited to find other work that is meaningful to me, possibly body work beyond personal practice, something that gets me thinking about my body and taking care of it every day, and spend my free time supporting the wellness of my farmer friends because farmers and growers are still very much part of my community and some of the best people I know. And yeah, that's about it. And so that's a bit about my journey in nonprofit farming, learning more about myself, and also kind of being able to kind of take a break, having that privilege to kind of step away, see another country's problem, and then come back. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Liz, for sharing all of that. We're going to hand it right back over to Laura.
Thank you both, Liz and Kelly. I feel like you covered the whole gamut of how interwoven this issue of burnout is with our society, our ability to be held by our community, whether it's our working community, our larger community, that it's a large issue that is deeply personal and vulnerable and also feels a little bit outside of our control, that the nonprofit industrial complex is not going to change quickly. And as we work toward more liberation and more healing in our society, we still have to keep ourselves going in that fight and hopefully also surviving, making money, growing food, doing what we need to do. And I feel like that was really brave of you, Liz, to make that choice. That I'm sure that was very hard to decide not to continue farming. That and it things like burnout are what make us face those questions. I think we try really hard to perform at the level of expectation, and our burnout is that reflex that shares, the reality with us that, we can intellectualize for so long, and that our body is really our measurement of how sustainable our life is. And that when I say that we all experience stress differently, but our bodies respond in similar ways, it's kind of an equalizer that we can learn a little bit about tonight, that I'm going to share about kind of how this works in our bodies, and that we can. I need to take a deep breath. I'm sure we can all stand to take a deep breath. As I read your comments and I think about, what to say, I wish that I could fix it. I wish I could make it easier. I wish I could give you a tool or a step that will be a surefire solution to solving this issue. And if there were one thing that I would want to offer you, it's that embodying your own personal sovereignty can help you navigate the pressures that create burnout, and that your body is your ally. And that's what we're going to work with to prevent burnout, and as like a first aid if we detect burnout. So the way that I'm presenting this information is we're going to learn a little bit about our nervous system, because that's the collection, the information collection system that we have, that's deeply connected with our mind and our body. That's why burnout is both mental, physical, and emotional. And when you think, oh well, isn't mental emotional, or is emotional also physical, that kind of woven togetherness is deeply in our bodies. And our mental state affects our emotions, but our physical state also affects our emotions. When people shared about having pain and being depressed about being in pain, that affects you. When you can't think clearly or be creative, that's your mental burnout that is affecting you. And that your body is what's receiving and transmitting all of that. You are this miraculous creature that has all of these things working inside of you, and your central nervous system, which sometimes is referred to as the vagus nerve, um, is the primary controller of all of it. It's receiving the inputs, and it's also sending out signals. And it separates into two components. The sympathetic nervous system is our stress system. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is the stress response for basically ensuring our survival. The threat could be a wild animal, the threat could be a conflict with your coworker. The threat in your body feels the same. And the parasympathetic nervous system is the other side of the nervous system that controls rest. And it is only activated through the way you feel. These chemical and electrical signals are really what's sending whether we're safe or we're unsafe, and that our mental state can have a little bit of an effect on when those signals happen. Like if you're ruminating about something that's really bothering you and you just can't let it go, and you keep thinking about it and keep thinking about it, you might start to feel like a tightness in your chest or a knot in your stomach. And that's your body responding to those signals of stress that might be completely in your mind at that time. But the threat is real, because a conflict at work might mean the loss of your job, or questions about whether you can keep doing your job. And our specific job is deeply tied to survival, and deeply tied to roots of injustice in our country, that agriculture has not had a human centric work culture ever. And that's what we're operating within. And as these tender humans, we're strong enough to do these things, but our tenderness is our strength. And the rest component of our nervous system is equally important to the stress component of our nervous system. And when we overactivate those stress responses, is when our body becomes exhausted with all that management of things, which I'll get into soon. But it's really just perceiving a threat. And sometimes it helps me to detach a little bit and say, chemicals and electrical signals through my nerves are what's happening here. I have thoughts, I have feelings, I have real world things pressing on me, but in my body, it's a set of chemicals that I just need to work with. And that if I can decrease my stress chemicals in whatever way I can, which I'm going to give you some ideas, working with your body is, I believe, the key to managing and preventing burnout, because your body needs that relaxation to restart the processes that renew you. And it doesn't have to be big relaxation. It doesn't have to be spa day relaxation. It is just the physical feeling of safety and calm that we can give ourselves, almost like a child or an animal. That if you think about seeing a cat wandering the neighborhood that you want to help, you can't scream at the cat to trust you and let you help it. You've got to put out treats for it, or maybe some water or some milk, that you're kind of coaxing this animal that's in a state of stress and fight or flight to trust that they can be safe with you and that you're here to help them. And our nervous system is a very primal part of our operating. It's like the feral element of us. This brain stem is where we have all of these kind of, when you get stressed, you're like this. There's an actual physical, biological reason for that. This is where that management is kind of headquartered. Haha, I didn't mean to make a pun, but here I am. And then it goes all up and down your spine, which on the next slide, we'll see a photo of the way that this all kind of fits together. And I have certain organs labeled because those are some of the primary organs that we rely on for our well-being, and also that have a very clear stress response that, what's the word? They manage themselves based on stress signals. So the feeling of brain fog, the feeling of a lack of creativity, your brain has shut down a lot of the extra skills that it has, because it's like, we've got to run, or we've got to fight, or we've got to do something to survive. I'm not going to think about what sort of creative solutions there might be. I'm looking for immediate solutions because I need to get out of this scary, difficult situation. And your lungs, you can kind of, if you imagine a time that you've been in a situation where you feel extremely stressed, you can kind of guess, your lungs kind of, your breath gets shallower. And from a long period of time of this shallowing of your breath, that decreases the oxygenation in your body. And that one of the tools I'm going to share with you is to use your breath to kind of hack this system and say, I'm feeling activated right now, but if I can manipulate the use of my lungs to convince my nervous system that I'm calm, we might start the calming process. We might start this de-escalation within our bodies. And our livers are really important for processing toxins and keeping us healthy. And it also is extraneous when we're thinking about survival or not survival. So the liver, the kidneys kind of go on pause, and they're like, well, we'll do our cleanup later because you just need to survive right now. You can have as many toxins as you want. If you're dead, doesn't matter. So we're just going to stop. And the stomach does a similar thing. It pauses digestion. It says, we've got resources, we got to hold on to these resources, and we might need them later. We might be starving, we're not sure. So we're not going to process everything fully. We're just going to pause. We're going to handle the threat. The intestines are the later level of our digestive system, and a lot of people will have intestinal issues that have long-term stress in their bodies. And this is the biological reason for that, that if you don't allow your body to come out of that stressful state, all of those things kind of stay paused and they start to deteriorate over time if they're not given a chance to do their jobs and go through their own rest cycles where they can regenerate their energy for doing the job that they have in our bodies. And reproductive organs, a lot of reproductive dysfunction can be stress related. And I have had friends that have struggled and struggled to get pregnant, and they've been under a lot of stress, sometimes because of their pursuit of pregnancy, and other times, you know, they have a really stressful job and things change, or, you know, sometimes you can hear stories about people who finally gave up and then they finally got pregnant, that there's an emotional, physical connection through this central nervous system, that giving ourselves a break is paramount. And when we're doing a job like this, when I have talked with political advocates too, it's like, I can't rest till it's fixed. And you're like, it is going to take forever for this problem to be fixed. We need you to keep fighting. We need you to keep showing up. So to give yourself a break is actually more like compassion in the middle of a marathon, to take your drink of water, because you know you have to keep going. If you're not going to drink any water and you're just going to keep going until you flop over, you're not going to be any good to anyone, especially yourself. And that our relationship with ourselves is really difficult to manage. Self-compassion is really important to me because we care a lot about our families, our friends, our coworkers, and the pressures that are outside of us. And it can be really vulnerable and scary to say, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. We'd rather maybe put ourselves aside because it's easier than standing up for ourselves in certain situations. Everyone's different. I'm not trying to say you're like me, but I know that when I've experienced burnout, and I described a little bit about, you know, just the physical feeling of burnout, I really wanted to get you this information. So I'm not going to tell you stories about me. I'll tell them along the way, but this central nervous system is fairly basic in the way that you don't have to think too hard about it. You can't convince it that it's going to be okay without giving it an opportunity to feel okay. So the importance of rest really is the foundation of recovery when it comes to your central nervous system and prevention of burnout, which is really what we want to do. The culmination of stress over and over without that pressure release valve is how burnout accumulates. It's an accumulation more than, even though it feels sudden, we can kind of sense it coming on as we're, you know, maybe it's harder to get out of bed and you're like, oh, I got to do it. And then you're going to go and then you force yourself, you know, I can tell that I skip brushing my teeth when I'm feeling a little burned out. The self-care tasks just feel like too much. I don't want to make myself breakfast. I don't want to take a shower. I'm so tired. I just want to collapse. And that, for me, is some of the early signals, because tending to those things, even though they feel like a little bit extra work, those are the things that will help us build back up our capacity. And it is not lost on me how in farming, we're never going to have a full tank. It's always just putting just enough in so that we don't run out to empty. And I think that's fine temporarily, as long as we can give ourselves more later. It's, you know, especially, I mean, financially, we're even doing that where it's like, well, I'm on E, I can put $10 in my tank right now. $10 is worth it. It's enough. 10 minutes of rest is enough because your nervous system can just kind of kick back on for a little bit. My dogs are nervous in the background. I don't know if you can hear them, not regulating their nervous systems very well, but hopefully my burner can take care of that. So I just want you to understand a little bit about how it works, because I think it can help with getting out of the self-blame cycle of like, there's something wrong with me. I can't do this. I can't hack it. It's perfectly natural for this burnout cycle to happen because you haven't listened to subtle signals or been able to respond to subtle signals for a while. And your body now is like, we're pulling the plug, guys. They're not going to cooperate. We got to pull the plug so we can get some rest. All of our organs need to recuperate. And this is now a threat to not take a rest. So we're going to just, all systems are off. So because the central nervous system is the primary driver of these responses, working with our bodies is the most useful and powerful thing that we can do. We've talked about pain. I wish I had enough time to talk about all of the physical ideas and things that I have. I know Cynthia Flores of Labor Movement has partnered with Not Our Farm a lot. She is a great teacher about the body and body movement, ergonomics, using your body in a way that's intentional and helpful and supportive. So we're going to not do too much about the movement part besides just moving around in ways that are the opposite of what you normally do. But we'll talk about that a little later. So like I said, burnout can happen when we haven't gotten relief to the accumulation of stress. And simple strategies for working with our bodies can help us get through it and prevent it. So the way I'm writing it out here, we can rebound more quickly when we know what to do. I have thank you, Anita, for sharing Cynthia's website. So I have a simple list of strategies next that honestly, I'm totally expecting eye rolls, and that's okay. Because this is almost annoyingly simple. But if you've experienced something like burnout, or, for me, it also feels like a deep grief if you've lost someone that's really important to you and you have no idea how to go on. Sometimes just making yourself a cup of tea feels like the most monumental task that you've completed, and that you are a freaking badass because you completed this one simple thing, and that this is meant to be both prevention and first aid. So if you're in the midst of burnout, you can simplify everything down to your physical needs. And that's part of your sovereignty as a person. You're a person first. You are a worker second. And we do a lot, and our bodies are there for all of it. I sometimes will say that our bodies are like the soil of our lives, and that we haven't even cared that much about soil for very long. We used to just think of soil as this thing that we put seeds in and then it gives us stuff, and then we just extract, and there's no regeneration to be had for the soil. And I think a new level of that is us. It's our bodies. And we need that regeneration as well. So we can't continue to extract all the time. And it can be really simple. And sometimes when you're burned out, that's all you can do is simple. So the basic human needs of breathing, hydration, food, and then it's uncomfortable, but thinking about peace and pleasure, we're not really socialized to think about what's pleasurable to us. And maybe that's just having a dance party with your coworkers after work. That I've started doing more dancing, and that helps me move my body in ways that I don't move during the day when I'm working. And it gives me joy in a way that kind of I can feel bubbling up in my body. And it might be different for someone else. Maybe lying in a hammock is something that gives you peace or pleasure, but that is a really quick and easy kind of redirect for your nervous system, because once you start laughing, all those chemicals just get flooded into your system, all of your relaxation and joy chemicals. So we're going to go in detail into these 4 strategies, and we'll practice a couple breathing exercises together. Because we saw that your lungs are deeply connected with your nervous system, we all have probably heard about the value of deep breathing. And it can sometimes be like, yeah, take a deep breath. I know. When you're angry, when you're frustrated, giving yourself a time to breathe, it really does. It oxygenates your brain. It helps you be more creative. It helps everything work better. Your muscles need oxygen to function. And when I'm really stressed, I do kind of quit. I even quit breathing when I'm really focused on something. And then like, whoops, I totally didn't breathe. So there are a lot of breathing exercises out there, but I want to share two that work the best for me. And they're the kind of thing that even if you can't take a break, I worked for a farmer that just didn't believe in breaks. It was like a I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of attitude. And I needed to find ways to get what I needed, despite the fact that I was like, man, I could really use 10 minutes. I can't get 10 minutes right now. What can I do? And the deep exhale has worked for me ever since. That I embraced it that season, and it's been a really important one for me. And it's kind of twofold because it allows you to do this deoxygenating system through kind of holding your breath out as long as you can. We'll go through it together. Um, so as you deprive your body of oxygen, it has kind of a stress response, but also a narrowing of focus where it goes, okay, all I'm thinking about now is breathing. So all I do is take a deep breath in or breathe in however I can, and then breathe out as long as you can. You could use a lot of force or make some noise. Sometimes that even helps with the emotion. Like if you're frustrated and angry and you just want to scream, like doing a loud exhale can activate some of those same screaming feelings inside. So you're pushing oxygen out of your lungs as long as you can until you cannot bear it any longer. And that is setting you up for a very deep and restorative inhale as well. So you're getting yourself a little bit of this kind of a release of frustration, and then you can really fully feel all this air coming in and feel kind of the miracle of breathing that we almost never think about. So I'd love to do that together, and I'll make loud sounds. So feel free to be loud as well. And we're just going to breathe in normally and then and I close my eyes automatically. It's like I'm focusing in and I already feel a little more grounded, a little more calm. And it's easy to do real quick. Like you could definitely just, if you need a moment, take that deep exhale whenever you want. And another one that's pretty popular, it's all over the place, but square breathing is where you count in fours and you'll also hold your breath, which has some function for, regulating breathing to hold your breath. So we would exhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. Did I say exhale first? We're inhaling first. And then we're counting to 4. We're holding that inhale for 4 and then exhaling. So we're taking all 4 counts to do like breathe in, boom, in, and then hold for 4, and then out, 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 out for 4, and then hold that for 4 as well. And that really is, if you have an overactive mind, like a lot of us do, it's just something for you to focus your brain on. Sometimes that deep exhale is just like, yeah, whatever, I'm breathing. Okay. But if you really need to be doing a practice and imagine a circle or a square, that can be good for just like engaging your mind as well. So we'll do that together too. And we'll go right now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and then exhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. And then just breathe in again. And you can do that a bunch of times. Sometimes I'll, because I like repeating numbers and kind of numerology stuff, I'll do 4 sets of 4 breathing and whatever feels good to you. And that's the most, if I could drive home anything about any of this, it's that whatever feels the best to you really is important. I see Liz likes to vocalize when she exhales. The vibrations feel like an extra step of relaxation and massage. It's true. There's something about the vibration inside your body. I spoke with someone who had been a singer all her life, and then she stopped. She got an office job, and she started getting incredibly depressed. And she's like, I have no idea what this is. And then she just started a singing practice because she's like, man, I haven't sang for a while. And it helped her feel better, that there was some sort of vibrational response inside her body, that she had become accustomed to this strong breathing and singing feeling, that once she stopped, it was a physical feeling of depression, of being lost, that she needed that. And I think that there is, you know, if you think about your central nervous system, that vibration is right there in there. So as a body worker, I know vibration is very powerful for relaxation. And feel free to look, you know, search Google or find apps. There's so many breath work resources that I can't share them all right now. So my next slide has both hydration and nourishment together. Because of course it's important that we give ourselves the resources that we need. When I worked for this one farmer that didn't want to take breaks, I was stuffing my pockets full of granola bars. I was just like, I got my 11 a.m. granola bar, I got my 1 p.m. granola bar, like I got everything I'm gonna need, and I can just sneak it real fast because I know that I need this food because I am the Snickers commercial, the hangry. You're not you when you're hungry. You don't want to hang out with me when I'm hungry. So mindful eating and drinking is a practice that you can use when you're taking a water or snack break to clear your mind while you're at work. And it also is almost painfully simple to just practice noticing the way that it feels. The smell, the look, the texture. When I'm drinking water, I can, you know, you can feel it, especially if it's cold, you can feel it going down your throat and into your chest. And it's a body awareness. And I think that when we connect with our bodies in this way, that it helps us feel grounded. Whether we're consuming something, it's a stimulus. So it can be something to focus on. And also just to make sure that we have it. You know, how long is your day? How much water do you think you'll need? And sometimes bathroom breaks can be another stressor of, you know, I can't drink a gallon of water because I don't get enough bathroom breaks. And that managing hydration for your stress is also an important part. You know, knowing yourself is a really important foundation to this. If you know when you get hungry, if you know when you get thirsty, if you don't, that's okay. Maybe the practice is noticing and checking the time when you feel this pang of hunger in the middle of the morning, saying, you know, I just want to get to know my body better, because our body is wired to kind of check out when we are doing really hard work and really strenuous things. That there's, you know, data about how our pain receptors will turn off when the pain is too great. If someone were to have a boulder fall on their legs, they wouldn't actually feel it right away because it's too much pain for your body to manage. And our bodies do that in small pieces as well. So if this is more than is manageable, there is, and I know that feeling, and others probably do too, that you kind of feel a numbness. Once you've been working so long and so hard at a certain level, maybe a certain point of the day, you're like, you know what? I don't even know what I need. I don't care. Just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep going. And that's your body working to protect you. Your body is your friend, it's your ally. It's trying to help you get through that. It's like, I can tell that we don't get to stop right now. So we're just gonna mute all of these signals. So to tune back into those things, you can do that pretty easily through the stimulus of giving yourself a drink or giving yourself something to eat. And I don't want to belabor this because I have more things to share and we're running out of time. Peace and pleasure is chemical reactions in your body too. That's a really quick way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And hunger is actually one of the primary indicators of being in your parasympathetic response. Like when I do massage, if someone's stomach starts grumbling, I think, yes, they're relaxing because their stomach is activated, and that's the parasympathetic nervous system working on digestion. Small bits are enough. We don't get enough breaks. We don't get enough peace. We don't get enough opportunities for pleasure. And taking a moment when you're feeling overwhelmed, I often just look at the tree line and I watch them blow and I say, wow. And I feel like, okay, I'm a little bit at peace right now. Or maybe there's geese flying overhead, or something to kind of take you out of your experience, feel a little peaceful, feel some awe, or to be silly. I love to crack jokes at work and be a little goofy because humor and laughter are floods of hormones, like I was saying earlier, that help with the parasympathetic nervous system, help you feel happy and excited. And even if you're laughing about how much you hate work right now, it's still doing something for your nervous system. You don't have to love work or feel pleasure in your work. Just find something else that feels pleasurable, or, giving yourself some sort of rubbing or a hug that I wish I could teach you all about self-massage today, because I think that's an important tool that we could have for relaxing our muscles and preventing pain. And if there's one thing I really want you to know, is you can absolutely massage yourself, and that increases the feelings of pleasure in your body. Don't use your hands. Please don't use your hands. If you're going to massage yourself, just grab, what do I have on the desk? I have a weird computer thing, but it's a hard item. And if you can massage yourself with an item, then your nervous system can hear your muscles better. If you use your hands, your nervous system is only hearing the messages from your hands, and you could injure your muscle because you're pressing into it and you're not detecting whether you're pressing too hard. And you could play with that. And I encourage you to play with your body awareness and use time in small bits or large bits to just get connected with your body, get connected with yourself, feel good. It's worth it. And a refuge for yourself could look like anything or nothing. It could just be your own thoughts, your own feelings. And I just want you all to feel the power that is in you to manage your experience, and that none of this is your fault because it's unmanageable. You're already managing it beautifully. Your body is working perfectly, and the pain is a signal of a need. The discomfort is a signal of a need. So if all you do is try to figure out what that need is and how to meet it in whatever way is accessible to you, you will be building yourself a foundation against burnout, and you will be resilient. It sounds so simple, but I kind of love it. And it's a little frustrating that it feels this simple because it all feels so hard too. And that's true. It just is. We're not in a world that gives us space for any of this. So what do we do now? I mean, we have to ask tough questions when we feel burnout. Those questions are even scary, but also, we're almost done tonight with this time together. And I just want us all to have a moment to dream towards something better for all of us. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that you are worthy of feeling good. Feeling good is a right. It is your right. And you are partially in charge of that. Other people might affect the way you feel, but you are your own ally. And pain doesn't always equal gain. Being in pain is not the goal. Pain happens, we can work with it. Pain is important to let us know what we need, but we don't have to ignore it. And that no one needs you more than you do. So many of you in your comments talked about your teams. And I've been on teams too, where it's hard to take a break. It's really hard. But sometimes you're the person who has ignited that need in other people. You might be a leader for saying, I need a break. And other people might come with you. And you maybe have to be the brave one to say, I think we need a break right now. And sometimes, I run a support group for vegetable farmers in the Midwest. If you're in the Midwest and want to be part of a support group, we talk about noticing or acknowledging, people were asking for strategies that if you don't want to be the person that says, I need a break, you could say, I'm noticing we might need a break. We've been working a long time. Does anyone else feel like a break might be appropriate right now? And opening the conversation without putting yourself out there, because I know how vulnerable that can be. But you are worth all of it and more. So one last quote from Tricia Hersey. We can go on, and I just want you to see it. If you haven't read the book, Rest is Resistance, it's an amazing book, and I have more books that I can offer you. I'm going to try to put them in the chat. If you're into books or audiobooks and you want to get more resources to support you, but Tricia says that we must see our bodies as a miracle and a place of reverence where existing in exhaustion isn't normal or acceptable. The beauty of resting knows that we are blessed to have a body, to be chosen to be alive, to breathe, to make choices, and to proclaim that our bodies are our own. It's a deep practice in care. Thank you. I will add those other books to the chat, and I apologize for going over, but I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you so much, Laura, for all that you shared today. That was incredible. I could just listen, to y'all share more all night. And thank you so much to Kelly and Liz for sharing your experiences too. We're so grateful for you all for everything that you shared. So I know we're at time, so really quickly, I also just want to thank all of you all for being here and helping us keep this free school programming in action, and submitting your topic requests. All of that has been really, really incredible. We couldn't do it without your support. And we're so happy to have this space for us all to come together. We have a short session eval that Sarah just dropped in the chat. If you have a moment, please fill it out. We really value your opinions and what you think, and how we could keep making this better and more meaningful for you all. And then we also have some upcoming fall sessions that we're really excited about in October. Just about a month from now, we're going to have one on winter work, off-season hustles, what farm workers are doing in the winter. And then in December, we're going to have a session on farm working with disabilities, accessibility issues, or differently abled farm working. So please stay tuned for that. We'll have that on Not Our Farm's website, Instagram, newsletters, and things like that. And then lastly, we'll be sending out the recording to all the folks who have registered. And I think that's everything. So thank you all so much for your time tonight, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time.